This is the Military Bottom Line Podcast, episode 81.
Working for myself, working as a realtor, like just you wake up every day unemployed and you have to go after it. Like if you do not eat if you do not hunt. And I love it. I don't know. It's just like, it's fun. And helping a lot of like first time home buyers, it's fun.
Welcome to the Military Bottom Line Podcast, where we learn from veterans and those currently serving how to make the most out of a military contract. We're here to motivate, inspire, and help you leverage your service to positively impact you professionally, personally, and financially during your military career and beyond. What's going on, everybody? It has been a minute since I've sat down and done a podcast for you guys. I apologize for the long absence. If you guys follow me on YouTube, then you likely know that I've been spending the better part of the summer doing a renovation on the other side of the duplex, and we're now up and running as an Airbnb. And so I appreciate your patience. I appreciate you sticking around. Hopefully you find this episode valuable as you guys start to tune in to hear Ali Garced's story. Ali is an active duty Air Force major, and she has just crossed the hump of 10 years into the active duty. And so I think she's got a unique perspective because she is actually transitioning out despite having just picked up major, despite being over that 10-year hump into her career. She is getting out, and I think her lessons learned, her time really making and preparing a seamless transition for her into her next career is something that a lot of people while in the military should start to think about. And hopefully this serves as a good example for a specific way that you could do that. And so I really hope you guys enjoy Ali's story. What's going on, Ali? Thanks for joining me today.
Hey, Jason, thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Shelby connected us via email. It's been probably a couple of weeks that we've kind of gone back and forth, and I've been, busier than normal, so I haven't been doing some podcasts, but I'm looking forward to picking it back up and hearing your story.
Absolutely. I'm excited.
Absolutely. So I kind of start with hearing like why and when you joined the military in the first place to kind of set the tone and kind of hear about your career.
Yeah. I honestly never even expected to join the military, but I went to school. I went to college in Elon University. I'm originally from New York. Okay. And my New Yorker friends, they don't join the military, especially like Southern New York. They're like, military was never an option.
Yeah.
So it was never really an option for me growing up. I just never considered it. Went to college. It was very expensive, small private school, very, very expensive. I felt bad for my parents who were in real estate at the time of the 2008 crash, that they were having to like cash flow everything. So I joined ROTC to help them out. Because they were very much in the mindset of like, we don't want our kids to get into student debt. Thank God. I'm so grateful for them. So as like a thank you, I signed up for ROTC like the middle of my sophomore year. And I told them after I signed up already, they were like, what the hell? I was like, I'm doing this. So whatever it is, like, let's check it out. Let's check out the military.
So you pursued ROTC then while you were at Elon?
I did. Yes. Okay. I had my fun freshman year. And then after that, sophomore, junior, senior year was all doing ROTC.
Cool. Yeah, I appreciate that mindset because I feel like most people are like, oh, my parents are paying for college. Like, cool, I'm already good. But to take that leap on your own as taking that responsibility is huge. So I applaud you for that.
Yeah.
So what did your agreement with ROTC look like? If you joined ROTC sophomore year, they paid for the remainder of your education?
They didn't even pay for all of it because Elon University was like pretty expensive. I think it was like almost 40 with everything, like room and board, maybe a little bit more. So they paid the bulk of tuition. And on the side, I was also an RA, like the resident, I forget what it even stands for now.
Resident assistant, I think.
Yeah, assistant. Yeah, resident assistant. So that paid for my room and board. And on top of that, I had another job. So I was hustling. I was doing a lot of shit, trying to like keep my costs low and not get into student debt.
Cool. Good for you.
Yeah.
So then after graduating, you were commissioned in the Air Force. Did you have an option between Army ROTC and Air Force ROTC there, or was it Air Force was the only choice?
Yeah, it was actually those two. Okay. And literally, like when I walk into the building, it was either you make a left and go Air Force, you make a right. And I originally had made a right. And someone along the way, as I'm walking down the hall, was like, no, you should probably go left, go Air Force. And I was like, all right, I should all go Air Force.
Somebody said that to you?
Yeah.
Man, they saved you a lot of heartache, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, no kidding. That's awesome. Yeah. So, I mean, definitely, you know, for those that aren't in the military, haven't joined yet, or, you know, those that are, the Air Force is generally the better choice. Generally, not always, but
yeah.
So yeah, what'd you end up doing in the Air Force? What'd they send you there for?
Yeah. So I commissioned in 2012, and your junior year, you, at least for us at the time, to become a rated, or to get a rating, what do you call it? Like to be rated, a rated position, it literally was as easy as checking a box. So a form came out and it was like, do you want to be a pilot? Do you want to be a CISO? Do you want to be all these acronyms that I'd never heard of? And I was like, well, I don't know what any of these are. ABM, what is that? I was like, I know what a pilot is. Let me just like check that. Sure. Why not? I was the very last one of my peer group to join my ROTC class. And at the time, people were getting, you know, weeded out, like getting kicked out. So I luckily was on like scholarship with ROTC, and I got that pilot slot, which literally was as easy as checking a box. I mean, I say that, but I had the grades, you know, I had the commander ranking and whatnot. So when I was the only one in my ROTC class to receive a pilot slot. And that at that time, I felt like pressure to take it. First of all, I signed up for it. You know, I didn't sign up, but I was like, yeah, let me see what happens. And here I am being like the last one to join the group. And I'm the only one who gets selected to be a pilot out of my entire year group, you know, for that class. So I was like, you know what? Let's try it. Yeah, I accept. Let's do this. So when I entered active duty in 2012, my first duty station was supposed to be Whitingfield, Florida, in like the Pensacola area. A month before I was supposed to go out there, I get a call from ROTC, and they were like, I have some bad news. Do you have a pair of cowboy boots? And I was like, what? No, I'm from New York. We don't have cowboy boots. They're like, well, welcome to the military. Your orders have changed. You're now going to Enid, Oklahoma.
No kidding.
I was like, what? So, you know, needs of the Air Force, you know, they had shut down the Air Force pilot training program for Pensacola there. So I switched over to Oklahoma, and that's where I spent 3 years. I ended up being a pilot trainee for, I mean, I was a casual lieutenant for like a year. And then I started pilot training class, and then I almost made it. Like I was 2 weeks away from assignment night. Like I did everything. I even had my PPL, my civilian license. So I washed out due to the RNAV GPS. I'll never forget it. And then the day that I washed out of pilot training, I walked into what I had originally wanted from the start when I was in our ROTC. And growing up, I always wanted to be like an FBI agent or like something cool, like badass. I was like, you know what? Maybe this all happened for a reason. I walk into the Office of Special Investigations on base at Vance Air Force Base, and I'm still in my flight suit, like the day that I washed out. And I was like, are you guys accepting? Can I put in an application? And my one question turned into a 3-hour-long interview. And over the course of time, I was selected. So switched career paths there.
So, you know, the pilot thing, you know, you kind of like, I don't want to say stumbled into it, but it wasn't like a lifelong pursuit or really that long of a pursuit at all, I guess, you know, other than pilot training. You know, for me, when I got, you know, turned down from that opportunity, it was pretty crushing. And so I'm curious, like, you know, having put in all that work, you were kind of in that environment for years at that point and pursuing it. Like, what was that like?
Yeah, it's a feeling I'll never really be able to truly describe, or I don't really have the words to put into it, where you work so hard for something that I never even really wanted. And I feel terrible saying that because I was selected to be a pilot. So I worked my fucking ass off. Like I tried, and then at the end of the day, I didn't get it. And I had never really failed at anything before. So like, it was like double whammy. Like I failed and I tried and I didn't even want it. Like that hurts. But also like, I feel like it has to hurt more coming from like my other friends who were also washing out at the time. Cause there were a ton of washouts, but like some of their friends had always wanted to be a pilot. That was their entire life's dream. That I would never be able to relate to. That is so tough. Or came from a family of pilots, like dad, grandfather, they were all Air Force pilots. Like that's gotta hurt.
Yeah. Going through that and seeing like the number of people that, whether they disqualify medically or during UPT or whatever it might be. Yeah, there's some some people that are kind of messed up for a while and they're like, what do I do with my life? So, but it looks like you had a pretty quick turnaround with, the same day you went into CID, or what would you call it?
OSI, Office of Special Investigations.
OSI. Yep. And you were excited about it and you had a quick turnaround. So you were able to kind of like reshift your mindset and reorient yourself and kind of hit the ground running. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at the time I had already been, I think, a first lieutenant. So over 2 years in, no OPR, I had already stunted, I wasn't up to the level of my peers. Yeah. It was difficult. The day that I washed out was actually April Fool's. And I asked the Wing King, I was like, is this a joke? No. Are you sure I washed out? He was like, no, this is not a joke. You that are no longer. A cruel joke. Yeah. So, but at the time, 2012, 2013, 14, that's when there was the biggest push to wash people out. Like every 3 weeks, there was a whole new board of 30 to 40 people, pilot trainees that were washing out. Wow. And majority of them were going to missiles because there was that big missile crisis of people cheating on tests. So a lot of missileers got the boot. So then they were trying to fill up all those spaces. So, wow. And so every 3 weeks there were 40 people just at Vance Air Force Base, not even including the other bases that were kicking people out. So I was like, oh my gosh, I just hope that I don't get missiles. So I did everything I could to get in front of OSI, get on OSI's good side. Luckily the main recruiter there happened to be there the day that I walked in. So nice. Okay. So, at that point, it's been 10 years now of commissioned Air Force career, 10 years plus or minus. What has your career looked like? You had your initial 6-year obligation for MOTC? 4-year obligation. Okay. So you re-signed for at least once. What contract are you on right now? Yeah. So, I'm kind of just hanging on until I want to let go. The only commitment is whenever you PCS. So I did my initial 4. I volunteered for a deployment during that time. I've been stationed at I think 4 or 5 different locations. Wow. And I hit 10 years this month. At the end of this month, it's 10 years. I'm a major now, and I am separating in 6 weeks. Wow. Yeah. Which, you've crested that 10-year mark, which is usually when people say you might as well keep going. Yeah. So what changed? If you have enjoyed it thus far, or at least enjoyed it enough to stay in, why jump? Yeah. It no longer became fun for me. So I actually tried to separate a couple of years ago before I took on this assignment where I'm currently at Davis-Monthan Air Force Base, Tucson, Arizona. I've been here for a couple of years now, the longest I've ever been anywhere in the military, 4 years. So I tried to separate before this assignment and I wasn't able to. So here I am. And I knowing in the back of my mind, the last 4 years that this will be my last assignment, I did as much as I could to prepare for my way out. Gotcha. Why did they not let you leave? How does that work? If you weren't in a contract that's only based on PCSing, why were you stuck in? Yeah. I did not have orders to my next assignment, but I verbally accepted them. And they said that was orders, that my verbal acceptance over a NIPPER email was contract. Gotcha. Okay. So it was a written acceptance via email. So there was some evidence. It wasn't somebody's word against yours. Yeah. Gotcha. Right. They're like, hey, do you want to go to this assignment? I was like, I don't know. No. And then they're like, what can we do in order for you to say yes to this assignment? I was like, send me to Monterey, California, send me to language school. And so they were like, okay, so if you accept it, if we send you to school, will you accept the next assignment? I said, yes. They sent me to school. 2 months after the 9-month-long Spanish training program, they pulled me out of school. They're like, all right, you're done. Wow. Like, wait, what do you mean? I signed up for school, this is why I took the next assignment.
So little things like that where your life could just be uprooted. That's why I'm separating.
So you thought that was going to be your new duty station for 4 years was Monterey, and they sent you there for 9 months. Am I understanding that accurately?
Monterey is a language training school. So whatever language you're going to go there for, you typically, you fulfill that entire language program. For Spanish, it's 9 months. So with PCS before and after, it turns out to be like about a year. I was there, and 2 months into me being there, like a month and a half, they're like, "Oh, actually, we think you're done. You go to the next assignment."
Wow. That's brutal.
Yeah.
Totally got screwed.
I got screwed. So,
so
I reached out to.
Did you meet a proficiency expectation or something within 2 months? Like you already had Spanish kind of under your belt a little bit? Like how can they even justify that?
Yeah. So they essentially said that. They're like, well, we looked at your Spanish scores and you scored well enough to continue. And I was like, yeah, but I've had these scores since I was a second lieutenant, like you, and I've told you. And I thought that we had an agreement, it's in the NIPR email.
Yeah.
So I called my gaining unit. I was like, hey, it looks like you have a mission for me. Like, I guess, like, if there's a mission, okay, I get it. Send me, if there's a need for me. And the commander at the time was like, no, we don't even have missions in January. I would rather you finish Spanish training and be familiar with the language before we send you anywhere.
Yeah. Didn't work out. Gotcha. So that was kind of the straw that, obviously I'm sure as everybody in the military has experienced, there's, the small things that are like, okay, this is dumb. This doesn't make any sense. Like this is annoying. But this was what kind of broke the camel's back with them kind of not holding up their end of the deal.
Right. And I was solo at the time. I was not married. I don't have kids. I don't plan on it. But if I did, that's that's a lot to uproot.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. And I wonder if that went into I don't know if they took that as a factor, but either way, I was like, you know what? I think I want a little bit more autonomy over my life. I want to choose where I get to live. I want to just live my life. I'm super, super am thankful for all the opportunities that the military has provided me. Free education, the VA. I have multiple houses now, a great salary. I'm married mill to mill, so we're both making pretty good money. And fast forward all the way to now, where I'm also being a realtor at the same time. I have made more as a realtor than I did this last year in the military. So I know that I'm making the right choice, and I'm excited. Yeah.
How does that work though? I mean, if you're getting out, but your spouse is in the military, you're still kind of at the whims of whatever they have to go through. And if they make an agreement to go to Monterey for 9 months and then get pulled back after 2 months, you're still, getting sucked into that. So how's that work? Are they getting out too?
Yeah. She is active duty and she is staying in she has a commitment. She's a pilot. Okay. In her career field or in her unit. I find that they are a lot more family oriented. Family comes first. So I haven't seen that uprooting really. So who knows where we're going to go next? I'll just get my license there, and it can't be terrible gigs, unlike where my position where you can go pretty much anywhere.
Yeah.
Hers are limited, and I like her limited choices.
Gotcha. What does she fly out of curiosity?
The EC-130.
EC-130. Okay. That's a C-130 variant basically.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
With all the computers in the back.
Cool. So then, I mean, let's back up a little bit, because you said you got your realtor license last year, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you said you have made more as an agent in the past year than the Air Force has paid you as an active duty commissioned major who's married, which is pretty good pay, So just I don't want to paint realtor life with kind of rose-colored lenses. It's been a good 2 years plus for real estate agents. Do you think that that period of time is what kind of made it such a good year for you? Or I don't know, I guess just talk a little bit about one, why'd you get your real estate license? 2, what that first year has been like and how you've done so well.
Yeah. I got my license. I never thought that I would want to get my license. Originally, I got my license for myself because I'm also an investor. And I was like, you know what? I just want my own access. I don't want to rely on a realtor to let me in. I don't want to annoy them because I want to see a lot of properties. I'm typically 9 times out of 10, I'm going to say no.
Yeah.
So I was like, let me just like do it for myself. And then when I got my license, I was like, what if I do turn this into a business? What if I become like an actual realtor? And my wife had been suggesting that for years. She was like, why don't you become a real estate agent? And I was like, I don't want to show kitchens. Like, I'm not like, ooh, there's this beautiful kitchen. That's not me. Yeah. I like run numbers. Like, does this work? Like, and it's black or white? Like, yes or no, bounce, like off to the next one. So I didn't like put it in my head that being a realtor, this is a business. Like I study all my KPI, like I track every single number. And I think that's going to be like the difference between, because yes, this last 2 years, any realtor has done super, super well compared to previous years and years to come. But I feel like the network that I have, the hustle that I have, like the drive that I have, like I analyzing every single number, like studying the actual business, it's going to pay off. So I'm like, not even really too worried.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you, I mean, what is that interaction like when you're full-time Air Force and, sounds like full-time real estate agent? How does that balance?
Yeah, it was completely unsustainable, but I knew I wanted to try it, like jump off the deep end, like super, super try it. Because if I'm going to separate from the Air Force, I want to know I can make half as much money as I did in the Air Force.
Yeah.
And then like the rate that I was going, I was like, oh my gosh, like by month 9 of me being a realtor, I made as much as I did at the time. I was a captain because I recently just pinned on major. And so that was at month 9. Had I continued the last 3 months at the same rate that I was going the previous 9, I definitely would have made more than I would have as a major. And I'm a major now. So I slowed down my role. It's like, hey, I know that I can do this, 1, and that 2, I like it. So let me just put a pause on it now, focus back on real estate, like being a federal agent instead of real estate agent. And so now I'm doing SkillBridge. So it's a super, super easy transition. I know a lot of people ask me this that are also military, wanting to get their license, and like, how did you do it doing a full-time job? Yeah. I very fortunately was in a position where I'm in a billet of 1. I'm not geographically separated from the rest of the other agents, where it's usually like 1 and 1. Anyway, we're kind of like spread out. So I'm able to do the work that I'm doing from home, which is awesome. I have not like really gone back into the office since COVID.
Wow.
And working in procurement fraud, it's very civilian. Like we're talking to a lot of attorneys. It's a very slow process where I'm used to like go, and I'm like, I have to like dial it back. And so I just was in like a position where I was able to do both.
Okay. I want to come back to procurement fraud, but first, for reference for listeners, how many houses, I assume you're doing residential real estate agent. How many houses do you have to sell to come up with captain, we'll call it captain full-time active duty pay? I mean, like 3, you're getting 3% per house. I don't really know what the Tucson market's like and what houses sell there, but how many for reference sake?
Yeah. Very like ballpark number. I was at 9 houses. Well, my first year I sold 20 houses. Yeah. And so I think by around like 9 or 10 that's where I capped. I would say 13 houses, but also the Tucson market has been going, crazy. So
sure.
With like a very average median or average price being like 325 ish.
Okay.
Not all the time do you get 3%. Some, if you're buying with like a open door or something like that, it's like 2.5, 2.25. So you kind of like factor those in. But I would say like between 9 and 13 houses is where you make more.
That's pretty good. I mean, to hit the ground running within the first year and sell that many houses is, I would think, I mean, I'm not an agent, but that seems pretty solid to me.
Yeah. I think the average agent sells like 3 or like 1 or 2 or 3 homes a year.
Wow.
And it usually takes like a first time agent, a brand new agent usually takes them like 6 months to 9 months to close on their first house.
Wow.
Yeah, I closed like 3 weeks after I got my license.
Unbelievable. As a buyer's agent or a seller's agent?
I was heavier on the buy side.
Okay.
So
that was your
during
choice?
like was Um, I think that's just what majority of the people were looking for, like maybe just like my sphere, and me reaching out. I just happen to attract more buyers. So I have my buyer side like down.
Nice.
So yeah, and we were able to get like my offers were good offers, very, very rarely. I had two clients where we had to put in multiple offers. The rest, like we got accepted during the highest sellers market. So yeah, I would say it's like 75-25 buyers to sellers.
Okay. Do you have a preference in which you like better?
I think because I have the buyer side down so good, it's like it's. I mean, I have an entire checklist. Like I like buyers more, almost. I don't know. It's really hard to say because sometimes. Also, by the way, I don't work with investors. I work with VA loans, like other military. Okay. 99% of my buyers have been VA. So it's I am showing the kitchen, you know, but it's fun. Unlike investors that are a lot more like wishy-washy, they actually never really pull the trigger, at least the people that I've worked with. So I only work with I happen to have only worked with military.
Gotcha. Yeah. I mean, I imagine that's a, relatively easy relationship to kind of kindle and get, you're kind of helping them buy their dream home most of these times, so that's awesome. So back to procurement fraud. I'm just curious that like the dynamics, active duty, Air Force, procurement, like explain what that is and who's committing this fraud.
Yeah. Procurement fraud. So think like big time contracts that the Air Force gets into with other companies. And there's so much fraud in the military. Like I can't imagine
any government contracts. I imagine is just, it'd make most people sick to actually.
Yeah. And like, it's insane. So, I'm not saying that these companies are the ones doing it, but for example, like here in Tucson, we have Raytheon. So, a lot of times companies will have other like sub companies, and those sub companies will be, there's a lot of SBA fraud. So like, we qualify we're women owned, or we're minority owned, or we have a lot of disability, like, that we hire on. But in fact, they don't. Or in fact, like it's really just on paper, and that the woman doesn't actually own the business. And really it is like the bigger parent company that owns that company. And so, or like ghost hours, ghost employees, just there's so much. There's just so much fraud. Like, and then we get into contracts saying, okay, we want like this type of parachute with this color, like these are all of our requirements, and they will substitute parts. And we need it to be like like American made. Meanwhile, there are some companies that are getting parts from China, and who knows what those Chinese parts are like. Like, are they actually even good? It doesn't matter. We can't use them. But like shave back a little bit of like the iron and you see made in China, like shit like that. And it's so hard. There are so many different like factors of fraud. It's everywhere. It's everywhere.
Unbelievable. I'm encouraged to know that there are people that are making an effort to like stop these, government fraud schemes, because it's out of control, especially with all the money that was floating around during COVID. It's like, it's crazy. But I had a question that I was thinking. Oh yeah, what percentage? I mean, I'm sure there's a bunch of you guys don't have any clue about that they actually get away with. Would you think, or I mean, I guess what kind of percent? Do you have a percentage, or can you say like roughly how many actually?
That's hard. So that's like the biggest block that like us as like federal agents working in procurement fraud have to prove is intent. And that is the hardest part, because usually they're not emailing each other saying, oh yeah, let's pretend we're working 30 hours on this project when really we only need 2 hours. Let's pretend that it's an engineer working when really it's not somebody at the engineer salary. Proving intent is very, very hard. So whenever there is a subject interview, they usually say, oh, I didn't know. And the contracts are like so big, so lengthy, so not, user friendly, that sometimes they actually didn't know. Either way, whether you know or not, like that's the contract that you signed into, so you should be held to that standard.
Yeah.
It's hard. It is very hard.
It makes me think of that movie, War Dogs. Have you seen that?
Oh my gosh, it's been a while.
With Jonah Hill and Miles Teller, I think it was. and really how any Joe Schmo can bid on these government contracts. And it's like, well, I guess if they're claiming ignorance, like I believe it. If they're these random Joe Schmoes just getting started, which a lot of vets are kind of like starting to see the opportunity that are these government contracts. And I guess more power to you if you want to pursue that. But it seems like a massive, massive headache to me. So
It's a lot of reading and reading and rereading. But usually the military goes with the lowest bid, and with the lowest, sometimes does not come good quality. Yeah. Or they will just upcharge you along the way, saying, "Oh, actually, we need this. We forgot about this. We need this. Adjustments."
So much for a contract if they're continuously amending that contract.
Yeah.
Funny. Okay. So now you're kind of transitioning out. You said you're in CSP right now. So we've had a couple guests that have talked about CSP, Career Skills Program. You're already an agent. And like pretty like, you're neck deep in being an agent at this point. Are you doing an agent type CSP program, or what are you doing for CSP?
Yeah. So there are two, with the team that I'm on, there are two different routes. So one is like to become an agent, you can do CSP or SkillBridge. And the other one is if you already are an agent, you can do more of the admin work. Think like transaction coordinator stuff, and like also like just knowing how to run the business instead of like being in the business.
Wow. So you can literally just kind of enhance your existing career by learning a slightly different offshoot.
Right.
Wow. That's super cool. Okay.
Yeah.
Who are you doing it through out in Tucson?
Actually, I'm part of Shelby's team. So team without any team splits. Yeah. So not geographically together, obviously. So 5 pillars, part of EXP. And I have people joining like the SkillBridge now. It doesn't have to be exclusive to Tucson, like no matter where they are, if they already have their license, like there is an option to do SkillBridge, still like simultaneously like being an agent and helping out your agent business.
That's incredible. So literally, you now have remote options for CSP.
Yes.
Basically, unbelievable. This program, it wasn't a thing, or I didn't know it was a thing when I transitioned out of active duty. But it's a little humorous to think of the possibility of like, for enlisted folks that are like in their barracks, they're doing like CSP remotely from their barracks, which I don't really know how that would work. But I suppose if you invest enough time and energy, you can make it happen. But that's awesome. Good for you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it took a little bit to get it approved here in Tucson. But now that it's been approved, it's awesome. I can like help out people all over the world.
So even though 5 Pillars is based out of Charlotte, North Carolina, it has now this remote capacity, as I'm sure many others do also, but you had to get approved in Tucson. So it's not like 5 Pillars is approved and anybody who tries to do CSP with 5 Pillars in any location, it's already an approved program. You had to get it kind of approved in Tucson, even though it's a remote thing. How does that go?
Yeah, I worked with Arizona Coalition, who works like side by side. When you're getting a program approved with SkillBridge, you have to either take like the DoD route and go through all of that mess, or you can work with their partner. And here in Tucson, it's the Arizona Coalition of something. Forget the name, but we partnered with them. Like Shelby and I like had a couple of Zoom calls with them, and so we got for SkillBridge specifically, Air Force side. We got it approved through the Arizona partner. So it will not show up on like the DoD list when you're looking at like DoD SkillBridge. You Google that. That one of the options there somewhere should say like, or they're partners. So that's where we got it approved.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. Similar to many of these programs, whether you're still on active duty or, like right now I'm trying to use my GI Bill for becoming a real estate appraiser. And it's not really a set path. Like it doesn't really exist. And it's kind of a state by state because it's kind of an apprenticeship, but not really. It's not federally recognized. So at times, if you're going to do something a little bit unique, it requires legwork, but ultimately will be worth it. So I hope one day my legwork will become something fruitful, but not to this point.
I'm sure it will.
So yeah, that's awesome. I'm glad that that's working out for you so far. And how much longer do you have on CSP? You said 10 weeks.
I have 6 weeks left before I separate from the Air Force. Crazy.
How do you feel about that? Are you like scared, or has it not set in yet?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm scared for sure. it's crazy because I look at the amount that I've made as a realtor, and I know, and I'm looking at the amount that I made as, you know, at the time captain going into major, and I made more in the realtor business, but it's still scary, you know, because you're leaving the safety net of always having a paycheck every 2 weeks. Life is good. Life is boring. You know, like you just like I started getting complacent, and it almost turned into like just humans in general always want to like push the limit. So I realized I was starting to push the limit. Like, how little can I do without being called out? And that's like not the way I wanted to live. I was like, this is not me. Like, so working for myself, working as a realtor, like just you wake up every day unemployed and you have to go after it. Like if you do not eat, if you do not hunt. And I love it. I don't know. It's just like, it's fun. And helping a lot of like first time home buyers, it's fun.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. I think, you know, it's definitely scary to leave the, you know, the known, leave the safety net of the military, but it does, you know, at a certain point, it's not good for anybody. If you're like looking to figure out how little can I do and still keep trucking along in my career. And it's kind of like, you know, you have no idea what you're missing until you kind of just take the leap and realize like the work and doing something unique that actually challenges you. You're not asking yourself how little can I do, but like how much can I do and how much can I make and how much can I improve? Like it totally flips the mindset, flips the questions you're asking. And it's a little sad. Like people that get stuck in that how little can I do kind of thing to just make it. It sounds like a pretty miserable life, but at the time it's like, oh, this is great, you know, until you see the other side and you're like, wow, this I could have spent the last 10 years doing this instead kind of thing. So yeah, for those that are at their, you know, 10-year mark and feel like I'm going to do as little as I can for the next 10 years, you'd probably live a better life had you taken a chance. But so I kind of want to talk about, you know, it sounds like you're pretty well equipped for your transition. Like, you know what you're going to do. You're a year into your new career. I mean, do you feel like you still have unknowns? You know, some people get out of the military, they don't really know what they want to do, but they know they are getting out, whether they want to or they don't want to. They're making that decision to get out. Do you feel like you've got all your bases covered, or like how are you going through this process to ensure it's as seamless as possible, other than obviously CSP?
Yeah. But yeah, really good question. I do feel like I have all of my bases covered. You know, like luckily I'm married to another Air Force officer, so I don't have to worry about health insurance. And I have another career that I am enjoying already, so that I know I'm going to continue hopefully enjoying. So because originally had I separated 4 years ago or more than 4 years ago when I tried to separate the first time, I knew that I was running from the Air Force, but I didn't know where to run toward. So it's like I knew that I wanted out, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. And originally I thought maybe I'll be a pilot because it like still hurt me. And like, it was still like a big blow to my ego that I failed. No, having my civilian license too, I failed out of pilot training, Air Force pilot training. Yeah. I was like, maybe I'll do that. So, but the more I was studying, I was like, this is not fun. And like, it just was not for me. So I had 4 years knowing that this was going to be my last assignment, to plan everything out. So, I mean, I don't know where I'm going to live because I'm married. I'm now going to be independent. As much as I like wish I could, I can't. So who knows where we're going to go, but I'll just sell real estate there. And I have maxed out my VA loan, and my wife also has like 2 houses under VA. Together we have 4 houses just under the VA loan. And then we have additional houses after that. So I feel like I've maximized my W-2 to purchase as much real estate as I can. I have thrown as much as I can into like my TSP and other like retirement accounts. So now I'll just have to so come retirement age, I'm good. Like I have for the last 4 years, I've saved and invested 60% of my income.
No
it's
kidding.
Been, huge. So there have been like definitely like sacrifices that I have made to keep all of my costs as low as as possible.
Yeah.
So I've had a lot of time to like prepare myself. Who knows where we're going to be?
Yeah.
But should be fine. It'll all work out.
Yeah, it all works out usually. Selfishly, I'm interested in asking for those that are out of the military. Like I understand that if you're in the military, you use a VA loan at one duty station, get PCS'd, you can justify using your VA loan again. I think you still have to worry about remaining entitlement, and let me know if you don't force an answer if I'm asking something that's out of the ballpark. But for those that are out, like right, let's just say right now we are house hacking a duplex. I have remaining entitlement. It's not a ton considering our market. Like you're probably not getting anything worthwhile under 400 where I am. And so I'm trying to remember my remaining entitlement. It's not going to cover a $400,000 place. How, and I don't have, I'm out of the military, so I don't have a PCS coming. How can I finagle if I'm going to buy a new, duplex, triplex, whatever? And is there any hope to use the VA loan again? Because I don't want to give up my low interest rate,
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Of course, there has to be a legitimate reason. Like I would never suggest any sort of mortgage fraud, but there are reasons why you can use a VA loan twice within the same state or within the same city. One of them is like growing a family. Say you're in a duplex and all of a sudden, like now you have like 4 kids and you need a bigger spot. So that is a legitimate reason. So like increasing family size, decreasing family size. If you're in like a 2-story home and you have health issues, knee issues, something, and you can't it's uncomfortable for somebody in the family to walk up and down the stairs, you can purchase something else if you feel unsafe. If you want a garage because you're worried about car theft and you only have a carport right now, stuff like that, buy another property closer to where you work.
So are you always going to be restricted to the remaining entitlement that you have for the VA loan? Or is there opportunity to somehow increase that entitlement or work around that entitlement without making up for it with a down payment? Because then that kind of defeats the purpose,
Right. Yeah. If you do not plan on refinancing out of the VA loan, then whatever you have remaining, you can mix with like an FHA or confirm this with the lender. You could definitely mix it with the conventional. So you would only have to pay 5% down on the conventional of the remaining. Of the remaining.
Okay. Interesting. I didn't know you can combine them. That's good to know. Okay. And I'm increasingly like, okay, we need a bigger spot. So, ideally we'd find another duplex that's bigger. But like maybe it's just time to find a single family and use a VA loan. But so good to know. Good to know. So I'm curious, you've been in the military for 10 years, so you've had some experiences. If I were to ask you your favorite memory of the military, or just kind of like one that would make the most ridiculous story, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
Deployed Afghanistan, Kandahar, 2016. We, as special agents, we work. We gather intelligence. We get information from our sources, and our sources are locals. Some of them are like passive Taliban. Some of them straight up are Taliban. Some of them are like very not. So, because in Afghanistan, at the time, especially now, you have to be pretty much like passive Taliban in order to survive. Like they come around, they just make you do whatever they want to do. And if you want your family to survive, you do it. Anyway, so we had a source who had just gotten into a gunfight with members of the Taliban. And so it's him and his buddies, and they're literally calling us. We can hear the gunshots in the back. They're like, we're shot. We need help. Knowing that we have a hospital on base, my partner and I go out there, and this is nighttime ops. At the time, we weren't doing night, but this was an emergency for one of our sources. So we drive out, we meet them. They go from their vehicle into our vehicle. The guy's like, I'm driving, my partner's in the back, like trying to keep like all the blood contained. We barely have the correct PPE because this was kind of outside of like what our normal thing was. Kind of. So we're driving them to the hospital on base, and he goes from the back seat into the hospital, and then all of a sudden the doctor comes out, or somebody in scrubs, and was like, "We're missing a digit. We're missing a digit." And I was like, "What the fuck is a digit?"
A finger, I assume.
A finger. They were like, "Look for the finger. Look for the finger." And I was like,
"Oh
what
my gosh!"
So it's like nighttime. I have like my flashlights. I was like, "Where's a finger? I'm looking for a finger." So when I think of like crazy stories, I'm like, "Holy shit!" I was looking for a finger in the backseat, like blood on me. Just like no mask, pre-COVID.
Yeah.
The guy also had like tuberculosis, I'm pretty sure. It was just, solid. It was crazy.
Solid.
He survived. He's doing really well. Well, last I heard, he was doing really well. So thank goodness.
Did you find his finger?
It ended up, I guess, having it was just, the doctor hanging. Couldn't see it, but it was hanging. Yeah. Gotcha. It had never left. The digit never left his body.
Well, I'm glad. Hopefully that's made a full recovery. But yeah, I mean, that's a heck of a story. Keeps it interesting for sure. Yeah. Did they send you out like in a? Well, I mean, it's not. The way you told the story, it sounds like it was just like one vehicle. I assume they send out. You're in convoy, even though it wasn't really part of your normal routine.
Yeah, it was just our vehicle. But we also did not go very far.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Fun. So one deployment to Afghanistan?
Yes, and one deployment to Panama. Conditions in Afghanistan were better than Panama.
No way.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, because it wasn't like Panama City. It was the jungle, the Darien jungle, which is border between Colombia and Panama. So it's actually considered one of the most dangerous jungles in the world just because of human trafficking of persons, everything.
Yeah. And are both those volunteer deployments, or did they voluntold you?
I volunteered for Africa, and my commander came back. This was like all within a week. They were like, "You don't have 2 OPRs yet. Like, you're behind your peers. You should deploy." And I was like, "Okay, cool. Yeah, I'll deploy. I'm single, whatever." They were like, "All right, just give me like your top choice of where you want to go." I was like, "I don't know, somewhere in Africa." And came back like same day. They're like, "You're going to Kandahar." I was like, "That does not sound like Africa," but it was whatever. It was cool. I made deployment pay. The mission was like amazing. I really, really liked the mission there. I felt like I could actually see the outcome of my work, as opposed to like not always being able to see that in garrison. So, yeah.
Awesome. Good for you. Through 10 years, you've gone through a portion of pilot training. You've gone through your whole MOS pipeline, now CSP. And I'm sure there have been some kind of offshoot military Air Force programs that you've been able to take advantage of. What has been your favorite thus far, and one that you would encourage, somebody that's new to the military, considering joining the military or Air Force specifically, to pursue?
Definitely the VA loan, by far the VA loan, and using it multiple times. Because that's that really, what else aside from the VA loan? I haven't used the GI Bill, but I'm excited to do so when I separate. That's going to be number 2 on the list. And taking advantage really of just any single time you deploy or TDY. I mean, I would reduce my costs as much as I could. Like peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. I don't even like peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. I'm like, this is what I'm doing. Just to save. But also at the time I knew that I was separating. So I was just trying to set myself up.
Yeah.
But I would say VA loan for sure. And utilizing the Skill Bridge program. That has helped me a lot.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah. I like to try to, I want to make sure, because yes, the VA loan's an incredible opportunity. However, using correctly, it could be a really dangerous opportunity, full leverage to the teats with no house hack, market super high. You basically overpaid, and then it corrects and now you're underwater. So I just want to jump in a little bit deeper to how to specifically use the VA loan in order to, do yourself a favor, kind of your future self.
Yes.
And what to avoid, play both ends of the spectrum there.
I'll start there. I'll start with what to avoid.
Great.
What to avoid is when you get your pre-qual letter or pre-approval letter from your lender, do not get a house of that size unless it is a multifamily and you're going to be using living in one side and renting out the others.
Yeah.
That's the only time. The last thing you want to do is use the VA loan and become house poor, and then you're like chained to your house. So that sucks. What to use it for is if you're going to, if you for some reason cannot do like purchase a multifamily and live in a multifamily, I would go like use as little as you could and just get like a condo, just get like maybe not condo, but single family. My very first purchase was a condo in Colorado Springs. And I purchased it, I closed on it. And then a week later is when I was told I was deploying. I was like, oh my gosh, I don't even, and it was pretty short notice. Yeah. I was like, what? I just purchased a property. So I rented it out and like I turned into a landlord at that time. So then my second purchase was a single family. I didn't like, I wish I had purchased a multifamily, like a fourplex, like using the VA loan twice, each for a fourplex. Bam, you have 8 units. Like, oh my gosh, I wish I could do it again. But whatever, I can't live in the past. That's what I would do. It's like, especially if you're single and even if you're married, 1 year is all you have to do. Live in it for 1 year and then move out and then move into a property that you want to feel more comfortable in.
Yeah.
But make some sacrifices now.
Totally. Yes. I mean, you say this with the VA loan letter of whatever you just called it. The same goes with like, if you're buying a car, I think you should buy a lemon if you're in the military and just ride it out, as long as you can, make some sacrifices. But similarly, if you get approved for like a $20,000 car, don't go spend $20,000. Like that's just like, that's the bank trying to get as much money out of you as they can. So, similarly, like, okay, what am I accepted for? And like, just cut it in half, unless you can reasonably expect it to pay for itself, like with the House Act. Being conservative in those financial situations and like sacrificing, quality of life earlier on is going to help you because nobody ever wants to, decrease their quality of life. So really, if you can just delay the increases, then you'll be okay.
Yes,
so,
100%.
I want to close out with some questions. I didn't prep you for these questions. Sorry. Usually I send them out in my link, but I didn't send you them. But they're not hard. The first question is based on, 10 years in the military. Would you recommend the military to somebody else who's thinking about it or not thinking about it?
I hate having this response, but like, it depends. If you don't know what you want to do, if you really have no freaking idea of what you want to do, I would say join. Like it's steady income. You have really great opportunities. You have pretty good healthcare. But if I would say no if, oh man. If you need the autonomy over your life, if you cannot handle being uprooted, which you will be uprooted multiple times unexpectedly, that's going to be so hard. So even then, maybe you can do it for like just 4 years and then bounce.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I appreciate that answer. I disagree slightly. I think for those that need the autonomy, I feel like those are the ones that like, I don't know, they should do it. Because like not life as you grow and increase your responsibilities, you're not going to have full autonomy no matter what. So like if you get used to, having obligations earlier on, then you'll better be able to handle the obligations that come in the future. So I totally agree. Like the autonomy piece is difficult, especially when you're like young and free and whatever. But it's like, I don't know. I think that those people at some point you're going to get checked, and you might as well do it early. That's true. I like that perspective. Only challenging that a little bit, but no, I appreciate that answer. Next one. Who do you or what do you think rather separates those who are successful in the military versus not successful?
Define success. Success in the military.
Touche. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, is that gaining rank? Because that would just be time.
Well, so let's be a little bit more difficult on people than that. I guess success. I don't know. So for people that are, I ask you because you're on the transition. If you are already transitioned, I would ask you what makes somebody successful at the transition. So I guess let's take it from that spectrum of the transition? What makes people successful at the transition, and how can they use their time in the military to create a successful transition?
Okay. I would run numbers, honestly, but like I'm a huge nerd. I calculated how much I would make if I were to stay in, making like conservative assumptions with the pension, like all of that, versus me separating, me no longer having the pension, starting at the age of 43. So I wanted to know how much I was losing out on, just so I could like fully see that big number of like how much I'm losing out on. Even looking at that number, it is not worth it emotionally for me to stay, mentally for me to stay.
Yeah.
So like the number, I mean, yeah. So I would say like run the numbers, know how much you need to survive on, and just start planning. Like, because you can start investing in like the retirement accounts, and you can start investing in like more of like short-term ventures.
Yeah.
So decrease your lifestyle as much as you can, and really just like, I don't know, prepare that way.
When you're running those numbers, how do you quantify the qualitative components?
Yeah. So when I ran those numbers, I wanted to quantify it.
Yeah.
But even then, like, what do you, wait, sorry.
Well, when you say like emotionally, okay, so say $1 million, we'll just call it $1 million, but it's not worth the emotional or mental sacrifice at this point. How did you determine what the emotional and mental sacrifice was worth as a dollar amount? Because if you're running it numbers based and you're saying it's not worth it emotionally and mentally, there is in essence a dollar amount that those are worth. So how did you make that decision?
Yeah. So after I added up everything I would be losing out on in the military, I added with conservative numbers, my growth as a realtor. So I compared those two, and like, even then, I mean, I can make more. It's interesting having like to run numbers where your income is capped in the military versus an uncapped income once you're working on your own, like run your own business. At that time, I was really trying to like just quantify like yes or no, which one is greater. But even though the military was a little bit greater at the time, I think I'm gonna have to rerun my numbers now that I've done like 20 deals my first year. It's hard. I don't know. Like I wanted it to be black and white, but emotionally, you just know, like you just know when it no longer becomes fun. Have a plan before you bounce, but then just leave. Life is too short to stay in for the sake of a pension. And I was listening to a podcast the other day, and people that like have career paths with pensions are taking a reduced salary just to have that pension.
Totally. Yeah.
Like you can make more on the outside.
Yeah. I mean, I was reading something a while ago. It's saying that those that change jobs, employers rather, you're improving in your industry, whatever the industry is. Those that change employers every 2 to 3 years on average make 50% more. So it's like, if you're changing jobs every 2 years, and making 50% more and giving up a pension and growing at like, CPI rate annually, like who cares about the pension? So just like thinking a little bit, everybody wants a pension. Everybody wants like the handout, and it gets really dangerous because you don't really realize what you're giving up by taking those. And yeah, I totally agree. Just, take some chances and try something new, I guess.
Yes.
But what is the most influential book you've read?
The 4-Hour Work Week. Without a doubt, Tim Ferriss. Yeah. Oh my gosh. I listened to it about 4 years ago, I think, and it hit me at the right time. Like this was prior to COVID. So just the concept of like remote work and like busting your ass off so then you get more remote work ability. That was a great book.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'll be curious. It's been everybody's been forced to kind of work remotely, so everybody's been a little bit spoiled that those that are or have been working remotely due to COVID. But like, it'll be interesting to see if that lasts, and if you were one that just kind of like took advantage of it, you know, versus those that like proved their, you know, effectiveness working remotely that may be able to keep that remote life. It's just going to be interesting to see how that kind of plays out in the near and long term. Because yeah, I think everybody's like kind of gotten used to the work from home thing. And now I don't know. It's just going to be, because that book is work remotely, you know, he's pushing heavy for you to pursue working remotely.
Right.
So
and for employers to look at output as opposed to hours in a chair. So that's, yeah.
Yeah. One of the things that I thought was kind of funny was like basically, you know, setting your baseline while you're in the office, even though you could do more, like you set the baseline in the office and then you know, go prove to them that you're more effective at home by just like working how like you would normally work or like work a little bit extra hard. So you're kind of like tricking them a little bit, you know, but I thought that was a creative way to, you know, make a case for yourself.
Right. Yeah. He does definitely like push the limits there. When we had COVID, at the time I was the interim commander for the group that I was part of. And and we were in a skiff at the time. Like we couldn't even really work without being in the skiff. Our production increased working from home just because in the office we're in, oh my gosh, what do you call it? Where it's like everyone's desks are just right there. There is no closed doors. There was so much distraction. One phone call, everyone listens to it. Like one conversation turns into everyone talking. It was just, there's so many distractions that I did like, and the amount that it would take me to do all day in the office, like at home, I did that shit in 3 hours. And I was like, now what? Wow. You know, like Tim Ferriss was fucking right.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, it's you know, I don't know. I don't think it's for everybody. I think some people need kind of like that office environment or some kind of accountability. But there are others that are just like, yeah, they've got the self-discipline and they can work well at home. And yeah, I totally agree. Lastly, you know, there are a lot of, I think, unique military discounts that not everybody knows about. And I'm usually curious, like what are people's favorite military or veteran discount that are, you know, worth pursuing?
Yeah. I would say the credit cards, being able to get like the Amex Platinum or Chase Sapphire, what is it, like the Reserve, or maybe any of the Chase Sapphires, I don't know. Being able to not have to pay that $550 bill every year and get access to the lounges. Yeah, all of that. I love that shit.
So with that, since you're 6 weeks out, 6 weeks, right? Am I miss?
Yeah.
Okay. 6 weeks out. You know, assuming they catch you pretty quickly that you're now exited the military, you will be on that hook for that annual fee, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So while you're in the military, like, yeah, no doubt, like, especially you're going to do a long time. Those are some pretty sweet cards with some pretty great benefits. But is it worth, you know, I think Amex went up to almost $700 a year. Is it like, are you going to keep that? Is it worth paying that at this point after you exit?
Yeah. No, I don't think so. Well, I also don't think it's worth keeping both. I'm going to keep the Chase Sapphire Reserve just because I've used it more. The points they have more value than an Amex point. Gotcha. So I'm going to get rid of my Amex or maybe downgrade it or I don't know. I'm also not like the credit card guru, but I'm pretty sure I'm okay with slashing the Amex and just continuing to use the Chase.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, $1,000 plus of of annual fees is like, no, do you really need all that? So yeah I like that.
That's a lot, especially since right now I'm like not really doing as much traveling either. Like if I were to use the lounge by itself, just like, I don't know, 12 times a year, then I probably would keep it.
Yeah.
But I don't.
Yeah, totally agree. I mean, the lounges are pretty sweet.
Pretty nice, especially the one, I think it's in Dallas, where you can get a massage. Oh, yeah.
What? I haven't been to that one. Very good. Very good to know. Awesome, Ali. Well, where can people find you? And if they're, you know, getting PCS to Tucson, or I guess wherever you end up next, how can they connect with you to, you know, meet their housing needs?
Yeah, I actually just created a YouTube channel.
Congratulations.
Making a lot of like content on Tucson specific. So like my next video to come out is like the top 3 school districts of Tucson. So anyway, you can find me on YouTube. You can find me on Instagram. They're both Ali the Agent. That's Ali spelled ALI. and TikTok as well. I respond to every message, so I'll be there.
Good for you. I honestly, I deleted my TikTok because I'm like, one, this is dangerous. Two, it's like, it's just how many apps? It's just too many apps, you know? And while, you know, you start with good intentions about creating, and then it always just sucks you back into consuming. I'm like, I can't do it. So I found myself creating far less lately and consuming far more. I'm like, this is disgusting. Let me clean this out a bit.
Good for you for tweeting. That's strength.
Well, yeah. How many subs are you got on YouTube?
Oh my gosh. Okay. I think I maybe have like 27 right now.
Awesome. All right. Go subscribe to Ali's channel. And I mean,
please.
It's a long, slow climb. I mean, unless you are really good at shorts, which I don't really do shorts, but I know that is an effective way right now. Just be persistent.
Yeah. If anybody has any questions about real estate, Air Force, I don't know, joining, separating, whatever I can do to help, I'm here for it.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Ali.
Thanks, Jason.
Thanks so much for tuning into Ali's story. I really hope you guys enjoyed that. If you guys want to learn more about Ali or connect with her, whether it be for your real estate needs or, you know, if you're just want to kind of follow her path, reach out to her on Instagram, subscribe to her YouTube channel. She's, you know, blowing up her content creation. She's getting involved. And so I hope you guys will go follow her story. With that said, I hope you guys, I hope I see you guys on my YouTube channel as we kind of progress and continue to get back to making content and focusing on some VA benefits and more. See you guys next time. Peace.